Hi, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to set up WordPress on a Debian Linux uh, machine or virtual private server. So if you've been keeping up with my other blogs, you'll know that I am a user of Digital Ocean. So I have my own personal WordPress blog on Digital Ocean. So this will, it won't mirror exactly what I've done, but it'll be similar enough to get you started with setting up WordPress if you've chosen to use DigitalOcean. But you don't have to for this particular tutorial. You could, again, use a VPS elsewhere. You could have the LAMP stack installed on your personal machine. It's entirely up to you. With that said, this tutorial does have a requirement that you already do have a server set up that has the LAMP stack. And for the Linux flavor, you do need a flavor of Debian, whether that's Debian or Ubuntu or Linux Mint. I think there's a few others as well. So before I go a little deeper here, if you are familiar with DigitalOcean, you'll know that they do offer snapshots of already pre-configured virtual machines, one of which being a pre-configured WordPress virtual machine. I've chosen not to use that for several reasons. One reason is that it's WordPress on an older version of Ubuntu. I personally like to be bleeding edge, so that didn't work out for me. Another thing is their snapshot requires that you use a more powerful and more expensive server. It requires, at the time of making this video, the $10 server rather than the $5 server. That's because Ubuntu is a lot heavier in terms of resources than just Debian. So those are some of the reasons why I've chosen to install WordPress from scratch. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and pop open my terminal here, and I'm going to connect to my virtual private server, which has my LAMP stack. So it's SSH root at 162.243.158.11. Alright, so now that I'm logged into my server, I'm going to go ahead and navigate to the directory that Apache is serving web pages. So I'm going to go cd var www, and you'll see there's an HTML directory. So anything that goes in that HTML directory is public to the world. So with that said, level up, not inside the HTML directory, I'm going to download the latest version of WordPress. Alright, so what I'm doing here is I'm using the wget command, which is like it downloads, and it's going to download this latest.tar.gz file. Alright, so now it's there, what we need to do is we need to extract it. So we're actually going to say this. We're going to say extract the tar, and what that's going to do, is it's going to extract it to a WordPress directory. We no longer need this tarred file, so we can delete it. We're also going to delete this HTML directory. So I'm going to say rm-rf HTML. That leaves us with just WordPress. So what we need to do is we need to rename the WordPress directory to HTML, and we can do that by saying move WordPress, and then we're going to say HTML. Alright, so WordPress has been downloaded, but it's not being configured yet. So the first thing that we want to do before we start touching WordPress files is we want to create a user account for WordPress in our MySQL database, and that can be done like the following. Assuming that you haven't created a privileged user account, let's go ahead and just log in as root. In the future, it's a really bad idea to use the root account for anything, even logging into your server, but that can be configured by you at a later date. Alright, so I'm now connected to MySQL using the MySQL client. I'm going to say create database WordPress, and then for that WordPress database I'm going to create a user. I'm going to say create user WordPress at localhost. So the username is WordPress, and it's a user that can only access the database if it's connecting from the same server as the database. So of course localhost. So you cannot do remote connections. You can't connect from your local machine or externally to this database, which is good for security reasons. So I'm going to create that user. Now I'm going to go ahead and set a password for that user. So the password for this user, I'm just going to say is password. So it's created. The final thing that we need to do is we need to grant privileges to this user. So this user needs to be able to have full privilege to do anything with this WordPress database, because WordPress is going to ask a lot from us. So we're going to say grant all privileges on WordPress, so WordPress being the database, dot asterisk or star, which is a wildcard for everything inside of that database, to WordPress at localhost, being the user, identified by, and then this is going to be the password. It's going to be single quotes. Alright, so we've created a database, we've created a user, and we've given that user all permissions to that database. Now we can go ahead and exit out of MySQL. Alright, so this leaves us with configuring WordPress through the files. So if we enter the HTML directory and list the files, you'll notice that we have a wp-config-sample. We don't want to change that. Instead, we want to copy it. So we want to say copy WordPress config sample, and we're going to call it WordPress config.php. So we're just going to remove the sample part of it. Now we're going to enter that file, vi, and we're going to say WordPress config.php. We're going to do a search for define. Alright, I found it. So we're going to enter a DB name. So we're going to say change word, we're going to change it to, we named our database WordPress. Alright, so we just set up our database. Inside of that, now we need to tell it which user account to use. We called the user WordPress. And the password we've chosen to call password. So let's save that file and exit out. And now let's go ahead and check it out. Let's see if it worked. So I don't have a domain name for this server, so I'm going to use the IP address. But I'm going to enter it here. And there you go. So it created, we're at the configuration. So we're going to name our site, test site. I'm going to call it nraboy. For a password, I'm going to call it abc123. Again, it's a weak password. It's just something I could remember quickly. I'm going to say test@test.com because I don't particularly want to share my email. And I'm going to uncheck that because this is just a demo server, and I'm going to install. Alright, so let me log in. nraboy abc123. Alright, so you can see WordPress is now set up. I'm going to view the website. It's all good and magical. But something that I want to point out is if you go to Appearance and you click Themes, say you want to download a new theme. So I go to find out all the themes, and I want to say install. Well, if you followed my previous tutorial on setting up the LAMP, or you know that you don't want FTP, well, how do you install themes and plugins without FTP access? I personally don't install FTP on my servers because one, it's another resource that the server uses, and two, it offers if you've set it up incorrectly, it offers another opportunity for an attacker to gain access to your web server. And I'd rather limit all of those possibilities. So FTP is not an option for us. So what do we do when we want to install themes and plugins? So there's actually the WordPress CLI tool, which we can use. And the WordPress CLI tool lets us do pretty much anything WordPress. And we're going to see that in a second. So in your terminal, go ahead and navigate to the opt directory, which is options. And we're going to go ahead and grab the CLI tool. Alright, so I'm doing the wget command again, and I'm getting the WordPress CLI tool from the recommended WordPress website. So it's going to download, and you can see it downloaded it to our opt directory. So now what we want to do is we want to assign it permissions. We want to be able to assign execute permissions. So we're going to say chmod plus x, and then we're going to type in the name of the file. So it now has execute permissions. We're going to take it a step further because I want to use the tool by typing in wp wherever I am on my server. So I'm going to do it like the following. I'm going to say move WordPress CLI, and I'm going to move it to a directory that exists in my path. So user local bin, and I'm going to call it WordPress or WP, which is the file name. So you don't have to move it to a directory that exists in your path. You can actually add the options directory to your path for this particular file, at least. It depends on how you want to do it. And you probably definitely shouldn't use this tool as root, even though I am. I'm assuming that you've set up a user account that has extended permissions, or a WordPress user account on your system that's isolated to only WordPress. So that way you don't mess up a lot of stuff. But I'm showing you that it is a possibility on how to use the tool in general. Alright, so navigating back to the WordPress installation. So I'm back in the installation. So now what I want to do is I want to go back to this themes area. I want to add a new theme. And we're going to actually try to install this theme with the tool. So I'm going to say wp theme install singl, which should be the name of the theme. Let's try it again, because it yelled at us for being root, but I think that was just a warning. Oh, it wants us to add a flag here. So let's go ahead and say allow root. Alright, so it should have just downloaded this single theme and installed it. So going back to themes, you can see it's now part of our list of themes. And the same thing applies to plugins. So you can see we only have 2 plugins here. If we want to install a plugin, we can say wp plugin install WordPress SEO is a particular plugin I like to use. We're going to say allow root again, and it just downloaded and installed our plugin here. So, I mean, it's not activated, but it is downloaded and installed. The more plugins and themes you have, the more likely they're going to need updates. So if you ever need to update a plugin or theme, you can just say WordPress, for example, theme update -- all, and then of course, because we're root -- allow root. And of course, no themes required updates, so no themes were updated. And if you wanted to update plugins, you would just replace theme with the term plugin. So you just saw how to install WordPress yourself on a LAMP stack capable web server. And in this case, my LAMP stack capable web server is Digital Ocean, which I find very useful for my own blog. It's very performant. If you do decide that you want to use DigitalOcean, please use the link that I provided in the description of this video, because both you and I will receive server credit to make our already cheap server even cheaper, which is a good thing. You definitely don't want to pay a lot of money. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. And if you haven't already seen my tutorial on setting up a LAMP stack, I do have that as well linked in the description of this video in case you want to see the step prior to actually configuring LAMP.